All right. Hello. How are you? Drive time, Tuesday afternoon, 17 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. A gorgeous spring April day outside, about 70 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. The forecast looks awesome for the rest of the week and throughout the course of the weekend. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you with us. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson behind the glass, producing the program today. Michigan is your national champ in the world of college basketball. I'll say it's been interesting to listen to some of the reaction, watch some of the reaction last night. It wasn't a blowout, but it never felt like they were in danger, in my opinion. UConn made it a classic Big East matchup for those of you that are familiar with Big East basketball, certainly back in the day. And they mucked it up. They were able to slow the tempo and slow the pace. But Michigan was able to get it done. And deserving champs, if I do say so myself. Dusty May's team manifested into the best team in college basketball throughout the course of their tournament run. 69-63, your final score. And Michigan is the king of college basketball with a really, really strong team coming back next year, potentially depending on transfers and such, because, you know, college basketball and college sports are a much different thing now than it was once upon a time. The college basketball transfer portal is still open. Excuse me, I should say just opened. So Alex Jensen and the Utah basketball staff now tasked with bringing in some talent to make sure Utah basketball takes a little bit of a step up in the right direction. If any announcement comes down while we're on air about talent additions for Utah or BYU or Utah State, we will bring them to you. But now we say goodbye to college basketball. I thought it was a good, not great game. We'll get into it. College basketball has long been over-officiated, if that's a term. Referees too much involved. I thought UConn got some tough whistles last night. But love the NCAA tournament. Such a fun event, and it comes to a close last night in Indianapolis. It's a couple weeks away from the NFL draft. Of course, a lot of conversation about Spencer Fano, a lot of conversation about Caleb Lomu, some other local prospects. Let you know what the latest mocks say about where they may land. Utah Jazz are back in action tonight, taking on New Orleans. Crazy thing about New Orleans is they're not trying to lose. They're just really bad at basketball. Of course, the tank continues for the Jazz. They're now in the bottom four, which virtually assures them of holding on to their draft asset because Sacramento, for some reason, is winning basketball games as of late. So we'll update you on the Utah Jazz draft position. We'll update you on the race for playoff position in the world of pro basketball as the Jazz are back in action tonight. The Utah Mammoth welcome in the Edmonton Oilers. As of today, if the playoffs started today, the Mammoth would play the Oilers and Connor McDavid in round number one. Now, there's still a chance that Anaheim could be the matchup, an outside chance that Vegas could be the matchup, but the Mammoth are all but assured of making the postseason, as we talked about yesterday. And if you have never had an opportunity to check out Stanley Cup playoff hockey, there really is nothing like it in all of sports. RSL is on another break. The World Cup and the international stuff kind of throwing a wrench into that. Recorded a podcast today, my new podcast project with my friends at KUTV and Sinclair Broadcasting called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. Pablo Mastroianni was my guest today. Talked a little RSL at the end, but we talked a lot about Pablo's career path, his career as a player that led him to play in Korea in 2002 with the U.S. men's national team that went further than any team in the modern era. Unfortunately, that's just the quarterfinals. It was a 1-0 loss to Germany, but Pablo had a chance to play for that team. We talked some World Cup soccer and got to know our guy a little bit. So fun opportunity for me today to sit down with Pablo with my new podcast over at KUTV. All right, good guest list. Craig Bolerjack, our guy, the TV voice of the Utah Jazz, will join us right out of the gates today. Ben Jacobson, the new head coach of the Utah State Aggie basketball program. Excited to get to know Ben. I've long been a fan. He had a great run at Northern Iowa. Now he's up in Logan. So excited to catch up with Ben Jacobson today. Friend of the show, Coach Scott Spinelli from the Believe Network, to talk a little NCAA tournament, will join us. And then we'll let you hear the podcast I recorded today with Pablo Mastroeni. As our partnership with KUTV, it includes the opportunity to bring that conversation here to the radio side of things. So Craig Bolerjack, Ben Jacobson, Scott Spinelli, Pablo Mastroeni, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, on a beautiful Tuesday. Hello, how are you? And college basketball savant Porter Larson producing the show.
There you go.
Good, not great game. I thought it was pretty ugly. But you tell me what you thought. There was not a moment where I'm like, UConn's going to win this game. Not one moment.
Well, and no, that's kind of what we said yesterday, is that's how UConn makes it interesting. But they'll still be kind of fighting an uphill battle against what's just a better roster, a better team right now in the Michigan Wolverines. And they showed that, right? A bunch of guys that are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", that can move and can do multiple things. And then just a monster in the middle, 7'3" shot blocker, and a guy that it reminds me, there was a former center for a UCLA program who didn't really even get to play much for UCLA, then went on to be a really, really good player for the Utah Jazz because he got particular attention to that type of development, which is different. He was kind of seen as like a circus act, in Mark Eden, of course, at UCLA, and then never really was productive until he was in the NBA. You can't coach tall, is what Frank Layden said when he brought Mark Eden in, and the transformation of that kid from his UCLA time to what he's doing there is really impressive. So fun, cool storylines, and again, Michigan, the best team in the country for the last several months. Yeah. Shout out to Dusty May, a team manager for Indiana once upon a time, and now he's a national champ. Really, really cool story. All right, Craig Bolerjack will be our first guest on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. But before Bowler stops by, courtesy of our good friends at IFA Country Stores, it's time now for your opening tip. Reminder, any drive to the basket begins with the first step. On the court, that's the ultimate power move. IFA's Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and Lawn Food is the first choice to give your yard the healthy, thick green look you admire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at IFA.coop or stop by one of their neighborhood stores today. I thought it was a great NCAA tournament. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's my favorite event on our sporting calendar year in and year out. I know college basketball is not as popular as it once was in the 90s when I was dreaming of playing in this tournament as a high school and AAU player and glued to the television all tournament long. And I still, a lot of it is nostalgia. I'll admit to that. The college basketball transfer portal is officially open now. And I was lucky enough to attend the University of Utah in the 90s when Rick Majerus was taking his team to win tournaments, to win conference tournaments, and then go to NCAA tournaments and make great runs and almost winning a national championship before running out of gas against Kentucky in that 97-98 window. And it was just so fun to be a student up there while the college basketball team was really exciting. And the Huntsman Center was packed, and people were pumped to go watch the games. And so now it's on Alex Jensen and his staff, Wes Wilcox, the general manager, to utilize the transfer portal window to just simply add talent. It's not that difficult as far as the concept. It's much more difficult as it pertains to executing it. So the question comes down to what sort of pocketbook, what sort of economic support does Alex have as he hits the open market to scour the country and, quite frankly, the globe now, which is how it works, is a lot of these European basketball players once upon a time would stay home to be pros, now come overseas to attend college because they can be paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars if they're good enough. And Coach Schiller, of course, on Alex's staff, has a tremendous international footprint and Rolodex and a lot of relationships. As the news starts spilling in as far as who Alex Jensen and his staff will be able to target and some announcements come in, we will bring them to you. Terrence Brown is in the transfer portal. Keanu Dawes is in the transfer portal. Now, just like in football, just because, a player has announced that he is in the transfer portal doesn't necessarily, mean that he is going to leave. So
we'll have to wait and see. It's impossible to analyze who Utah basketball could potentially be next year, sitting here in early April after the tournament just ended yesterday. We're going to have to wait to see what the roster looks like. And honestly, we're going to have to wait to see how the roster comes together. But I think it's fair to start talking about simply what I perceive to be the necessity of not just improvement, but it has to be, I'll say, a lot better than it was last year. 2 conference wins, last in the Big 12. And yes, it is potentially the best basketball conference in America. I think the Big Ten probably has their case to make for that now, not just because Michigan won the national championship, but Illinois in the Final Four. They had a lot of good teams that made runs in the tournament. The Big 12 was frankly disappointing in the NCAA tournament, if we're honest. I thought Houston had a better chance. I thought Iowa State was going to make some noise. Of course, they had some injuries. And then Arizona was smoked by Michigan in the national semifinal. And it is a tough conference. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think anybody around here is asking for miracles to go win the thing next year. It has to look a lot better than it did a year ago. And that starts with adding the talent to the roster. We can't analyze Alex as a coach until we actually see him coach really good players. Again, not rocket science. It's easier said than done, certainly, to go out and recruit and utilize the transfer portal to add talent to your group. But hopefully he's getting the economic support that he needs. There are some lists floating around. I always hesitate to bring these social media spend lists on air because I can't corroborate any of them. But what's pretty clear is Texas Tech and BYU, both in football and in basketball, in the Big 12 are spending the most money. Who was in the conference championship game in football last year? It was Texas Tech and BYU. You can't always draw a straight line from spend to results, but you kind of can more often than not. So we'll see. But congrats to Dusty May in Michigan, deserving champs. Dan Hurley and UConn continue to show that their belief that they can win in March seems to be very real. They go to their 3rd Final Four in 4 years, and that game was exactly how UConn wanted it to go as far as the flow and the pace. It was a half-court physical game. It was a Big East basketball game, and that's where UConn plays their basketball. But Michigan just showed that no matter how you want to play, we're going to figure out a way to get it done. They didn't shoot it well. Neither team did, quite frankly. It was a little bit of an eyesore as far as the offense goes. Michigan shot 38%. UConn shot 31%. Michigan expedited their inability to knock down threes with paint points and making their free throws. 25 of 28 from the line, including making their last 20 free throws. UConn got some tough whistles, but that's a physical team that wants to make sure that they're there all night long. But only 2 of 15 from 3, Michigan was. Trey McKinney hit essentially the dagger. But UConn was not ready for this moment on offense, namely Braylon Mullins. And if that kid is one and done, if I'm an NBA scout, I'm telling him to go back to school. He's not strong enough to play pro basketball. You can tell there's a lot of ball skills there, but he was not ready for this moment. 4 of 17. Penny for John Stark's thoughts. No one understood that reference. 3 of 10 from 3. UConn goes 9 of 33 as a team from 3. Caravan had some minutes, but he missed a lot of wide open shots. Solo Ball had some minutes. He got in foul trouble. So did Silas Denver Jr. Malachi Smith came in and gave him some good minutes as their backup point guard. But once they got into foul trouble, and Terrace Reed Jr. just had difficulty with the Mara because the Mara is 7'3", and I think Terrace Reed Jr. is about 6'9". So Michigan, deserving champs, happy for that program. Of course, now we'll see if their head football coach can do what their head basketball coach just did. We'll catch a break. Craig Bolerjack is our first guest on a Tuesday edition of the program right here on ESPN 700. Going to chat with the new head coach of Utah State today, Ben Jacobson. Signed a 5-year contract up in Logan after a 20-year run in Northern Iowa. Utah Jazz are back in action tonight. They're taking on New Orleans. That is a 6 o'clock Mountain Time tip. Joining us now with beads around his neck, I'm sure, celebrating in Mardi Gras in New Orleans is Craig Bowler. Jack Bowler, how are you, sir?
Oh, I just got off the street, Spence. I'm doing good, pal. Doing good.
Now, I'm sure you're not celebrating Mardi Gras, but that's a great city, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, their basketball team has some work to do, but that's always a fun city to visit, yeah?
It is. The hotel situated just kind of off the mighty Mississippi. I've got a buddy from college that lives here. He gave me a great tour of kind of the outside parts. And we went to the Pontchartrain Hotel and went up on their dinner deck and just had one of the most marvelous views of the Mississippi and the dome and just, what makes this city tick. It's all about water. There was a lot of shipping going on. And, it's special. It's amazing to think that this thing is below sea level, by the way. And so you can see why when bad weather spins up, it comes right across the flatlands of Louisiana, no doubt.
What's your favorite city? The one that when you're looking at the schedule, and you can name a couple if you'd like, you circle it, you say, man, I can't wait for that trip.
Well, New Orleans would be one of them. And, a lot of times it's seeing friends from the old days and kicking around some good stories. I like Phoenix. Miami's just always going to be a fun spot. We're never there that long, Spence. And I guess, the NBA hasn't given us a day or a day and a half off in Miami, but that I can remember. Always interesting to stop in New York just to get that big city, taste again, and just 8 million people trying to make it through one day and keeping it all together. I think it'll be really interesting to see Seattle back in the mix if all this thing works out. I was up there my first year when Durant was drafted, and then things kind of went awry and everything went to Oklahoma City. But that city's going to be a powerhouse again to host an NBA franchise for sure.
So when it comes to expansion in the NBA, a couple of different things here, Bowler, and you see this stuff night in and night out. If a league has a third of their teams unwilling to try to win as early as, late February, early March, is it a good idea to add 2 more teams to this thing? Now, look, I'm a grown up. I know how this works. All right. This is a cash grab in a lot of ways. And the business of basketball is great. So the owners are going to continue to make money hand over fist. But with a regular season that seems to have so many issues, is this really a good idea? Give me your thoughts.
No, it's a great question, and one that's got to be really behind closed doors and then come out in the front. And hopefully Adam Silver and the Board of Governors have this meeting in May to talk about exactly this, about competition. And the fans deserve the best. The money's there, as we know. The salaries are the best they've ever been. But you bring up a great point, dilution. I mean, there's young players like a Kennedy Chandler and a Bez Mbang that would just drool to make an NBA roster, right, because of the salary. Where would that be on a 12-man roster? Most likely right at the end of the bench. But, it's really intriguing to see what's happened over the last 4 to 5 years and then talk about expansion and have an expansion draft because, teams would lose players to that draft. And it's really still unsettled for me, Spence. Unless you fix the problem at hand, then expansion is going to have some hiccups. You're right about it looks, they're going to have to move a team out of the West, by the way, in my opinion. That's just me. I don't know who that would be. But, to have Vegas and Seattle in the West, just think about the travel schedule for the Jazz, the Nuggets, the Blazers, the Suns. It kind of makes it much easier than, jumping back east a couple of more trips, depending if it's Memphis or even maybe New Orleans. They put them in the East. But, there's a lot of things that have to be discussed. This year, it's been brought to the forefront. I'm glad the discussion is being made. It's a tough talk, but the fans deserve the best basketball when it comes to who's on the floor each and every night. And I can't wait for that to happen. I can't wait for the Jazz to put the full complement on the floor, Spence, in 6 months' time, 5 months' time, 2 games after tonight. And, it's been good to see the young guys develop, but you've got to see NBA high-level playing and be competitive. And I think, that's where the Jazz hopefully will be next year. And that's not far off, by the way. But it's a discussion point that has to be made in the offseason, no doubt.
One of the things that's being talked about, Bowler, and once upon a time, the conversation about shortening the season was kind of laced with this whole would the league really do that because it would cost them money, and would television partners be okay with that because they want the inventory? And I honestly don't know how this could work because the TV deals are already signed, okay? And you've got partnerships with Amazon, you got partnerships with NBC, you have partnerships with, of course, the Disney networks, ESPN and ABC, and not to mention the local broadcasts like the ones that you guys have with the Utah Jazz. So there would have to be some agreements, there'd have to be some massaging with this. But your thoughts on the potential of limiting the number of regular season games to 65, which is being proposed. What say you?
Talking again, I'm going to use Thurl and Ron Boone as my guide here because they both were in an era where you played, and it was a badge of honor to go 82. If you miss one, you could probably live with yourself, but it was a badge of honor to be in this league and to go out and battle each night. Now, look, there was a commercial flight time, you remember, Spence, and there was also times that Jerry Sloan used to speak about on playing back to back to back. I don't know what that answer is. I think the first thing you said would be the biggest obstacle. You'd have to go in and renegotiate and put an addendum to these contracts if you go from 82 to 65. Maybe 70 would be maybe more logical. But then again, you start getting into, does that take care of the back-to-backs? Is that going to take more wear off a player? But then other will tell you, Spence, in the world of the NBA that we all live in, is that it's the speed of the game. Is what's wearing players down, the pace of the game, the shots taken over, some teams on a given night, 106 to 110, field goal attempts. So now there again, it's one to really sit there and you have to study it, but it has to be. It's another conversation that has to be made because this can't sustain itself, in my opinion. The fans could turn away. You can't have that. That's the backbone to it all. I know the television revenue is outrageous, but look, fans have to see that they are getting their money's worth and that the competition is always going to be high level. I don't think cutting it back helps. I really don't. But that's not my pay grade, man. I always say that. I mean, it's always a conversation to have, but I just don't think ownership – what would that be, Spence? If you go down to 67, so you're talking cutting 15 games, so you may one year have 8 less home games or then 7. So, man, think of the revenue, just of the concessions and jersey sales and the bodies walking through every arena, including the Delta Center. Man, that's a big hit. So I don't know. It's one again. I don't have an answer for. But they're going to have to make some decisions on keeping guys healthy, keeping them in the lineup, and still being competitive at the highest level they can.
The bottom line, Craig, to me is simply this. And, again, these are discussions that will be had in the league office with the competition committee and the board of governors, and they're going to have to come up with a solution because we do have some harsh realities that pro basketball has to face right now. For the first time in maybe 20 years, maybe since the lockout in 99, the salary cap is going down next year. Now, it's not a lot, right? It's about $1 million, but that's a bad sign, okay? So that has to be tied to, TV ratings. It has to be tied to certain buildings. And you see these buildings, and, the Delta Center more or less is full every night. I was there the other night, and it was very much not full. And I get it, because this is a team that we all know what they're doing. But there have been several buildings across the landscape of the league that have teams like the Jazz that aren't trying to win, and nobody shows up in Washington, and nobody shows up in certain places. Fact of the matter is, salary cap going down is a bad sign for the league. Okay? So they have to figure out how they can change their regular season product. So night in and night out. Last Friday, when I was signing off the show, I looked at the NBA schedule. 7 of the 8 games featured a team trying to win and a team trying to lose. All 7 of those games were ass kickings. I went home to sit down and to start watching some basketball. I'm like, screw it. There's a new series on Apple I want to watch. They've got to figure out how to make their regular season product more compelling up until the playoffs, not up until February. That, to me, is the big deal.
Yeah, no, Spence, spot on. This time of year is one that it just is an incredible lull, and we're in it as the franchise of the Utah Jazz, have been for 3 years and change. And does that change next year? On paper, yes. Injury is going to play a big part of all this. But I think that when you scan and peruse the daily injury reports that are updated usually twice, you just sit back and think, wow, a lot of players come and go, a finger, a hand sprain, a contusion. No, I think the fans need more, want more, and they should get more. And that's where I stand. I think the Jazz are open to that discussion. I think that most teams play by the rules, and those rules have to be bent back another way, Spence, that favors, competition. And I think also to re-energize a 12-man roster, 12 guys, or maybe you rotate 9 and 10. Just depends on the coach and the situation. But I think these guys truly were raised to be competitive. Kind of goes against, in this league, what they want on a nightly basis. I think all these guys are the highest level talent. And how do you get there? You're competitive. And so to pull the reins back and say, no, not tonight, it just kind of goes against the grain of anyone who's played. I don't care if it's church ball, junior high, high school, junior college, whatever. What do? You go and bust your tail because you want to win and be the best player you possibly can. And I don't think that's changed with these guys. I really don't.
All right. Look, they're 3-21 in their last 24. All right. So
yeah. Believe me, I know.
I know, bro. I know. And you're a pro, so you haven't 1, 2, 3 Cancun'd it yet. Here's how I'll ask you. What's been the most? Look, I still watch because you're my guy. Thurl's my guy, and I cover the team. You sound like you're having fun. I mean, there's that. How do you go about the business of making sure you continue to at least, again, present the product as if you're really, really enjoying yourself when the team is 3-21 in their last 24 games?
Spence, I think that you have to continue to think yourself as an ultimate professional, and that's what I try to do every night. The fans deserve it. This isn't just play-by-play speak. I mean, this is the way I approach my job, and I always have. I think once I sit down and put the headphones, we get into the pregame and postgame, or the open, I just go into a different zone and just say, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to call it Bez and Bang. Could be is for all I consider is a defensive player of the year. Kennedy Chandler. These guys are busting their tail to try to impress. And I go back again. Will Hardy knows it. I mean, the Angels know it. And Jerry Sloan echoed it every night to young players, is that you're auditioning every time you hit the floor. I think they deserve Thurl and my best attention, and also the fans deserve to have some fun too. And some of these guys make some marvelous plays. But I think this year, compared to last, what's more motivating is the fact that we've seen true growth. The minutes have not been – they've been used wisely, I think is the best word. Sensabaugh, a very intriguing player with the frame he has, and not just a three-point shooter. He can also, take it and run with it, and he's improving on defense. Flip has made big strides after a slow start, after having a great summer in Las Vegas and was the, Summer League MVP. So we've seen Ace, we've seen Keontae, who hasn't played of late and will not. But I think that's the growth pattern of it all, is to see who they are. Can they make it in this league, and will they be a part of the future of the Utah Jazz? And that was probably the biggest questions since All-Star break, is who can play. And they've really given the guys, the minutes to prove it. Whether or not they'll be here in September when camp hits, we don't know. But it should be an intriguing summer. But I just try to just take it every night, one day at a time, one game at a time. But you still have to prep, and the fans deserve that. And I tell you, I just can't turn away from that. I can't.
Well, and you continue to do it at a really high level. I want you to know. I'm thinking of you like every night watching these games. And, Thurl really has grown too, Craig, as a broadcaster. Like whenever you do something for the first time, like I'm in the midst of learning the TV business now as I've taken a little side gig. And it's different than radio. And it's just there is a learning curve where you're learning a new set of skills. Tell me how you've seen your partner evolve, Thurl.
Oh, big time. When you put a headset on, and I think this is the one thing that fans, I would love to have fan night where they could come in and call a minute or two of a broadcast, just so, they understand that there are so many voices talking to you from the truck. JB, Trav, who's now with Prime, and Joe Kruger, some of the best people I've worked with locally and nationally. But it's Spence, it's controlled chaos. That's the best way I can put it. So you have to learn that when someone's talking to you, you may be right in the middle of a play, but they're giving you a heads up that a commercial break, a promo, or a replay is forthcoming in 3, 2, 1, and you have to get out and be ready for it and change your whole mode of thinking. So it's controlled chaos with a bunch of people in a truck that are in a parking lot or in the bottom of an arena who has communication lines to us in the booth or down on the floor. And I think, again, for Thurl, I think he was like overwhelmed like most are, but he handled it. Hey, he won a national championship. He knows pressure, right? And so I think that did help him as an athlete. I've worked with many at the networks who some guys just don't get it or want to do the work. And luckily, Big T likes to do the work and likes to do the prep and has a great ability to talk to the young players. And they respect him because he was in this league, and he actually had an overseas stint as well. So there's that connection with international players, and there's a connection with a lot of young players too. Remember, he came out after the national championship and what was the number 7 pick. He was an old man, going on 23. And now he's talking to young guys at 18 and 19 who are trying to learn from him too. So I think it's benefited him to have a Filipowski, to have a Bryce Sensabaugh, to have a Keontae and a Ace Bailey who actually, respect his journey, and he's trying to help them with theirs. So I think it just makes him a better broadcaster. I really do.
The interesting thing, and I'm learning this now that I'm leaning into the TV side of this, and there's a little bit of this in radio where, if Porter has to communicate something to me, he'll say something into my headset while I'm interviewing you. Or if, the nice thing about the format of this show is I'm always mindful of what is going to happen as it pertains to people not able to listen live, because the new way of consuming is it has to be on your phone, it has to be digital, and it has to be evergreen. So I'm not beholden to some clock because I want somebody who pulls up the podcast page and they see, oh, he interviewed Bowler today. I missed that. Yeah. I'm going to go walk the dog, and I'm going to listen to that while I'm walking the dog. So, I'm not necessarily as beholden to a clock on radio, but on TV, I underestimated, Craig, the IFB. I underestimated the chaos of the IFB. I'm like I'm hearing my producer like, okay, 60 seconds, 30 seconds. Okay, VO. All right, now time for video. Dunny's going too long. Tell him to shut up. Like, controlled chaos is exactly what it is. When you're up against it, what is your cue? Now I'm just asking you for advice on radio. What is your cue that you give to Thurl, like, hey, we got to wrap it up?
Yeah. I look at him and I put my hand out, and the signals are very mild. No one would really know, but he knows my tempo now, as we've been together mostly since 21. He worked with me part-time during the 2020-21 season, but then 21-22. So he learns and understands cadence, I think voice inflection, speed, and then just the look, because we usually are right like shoulder to shoulder or a foot away, and I can look over my shoulder, take my eye off the floor, and then I'll give him a hand signal like, you take it, you got the replay, and then we're going to wrap it to break, and then I just wave him like it's yours, go, and he figures it out. So you will too. And anybody who gets into this business of controlled chaos, it takes time to understand the cues and the tempo of your, broadcast partner, and then also to connect with the guys that are leading the way in the truck. And it's fun. We feel good as a team. These guys are as close as my family because we spend 6 months together, or 7. And I think as the time goes on, you just you respect what they do even more.
I certainly have witnessed Travis, our guy Trav, on the golf course when he's not happy with a hooked iron. What was he like in the truck? And look, that's my guy, and he's a pro. He could do it. He's doing it at the highest level. What was Trav like in the truck as your producer?
Dude, I think the word is, and it's with total respect, demanding. I mean, he's been at the network. I've been there 25 with different networks, and we all expect the same thing. We can't take a mistake very well or be satisfied with it. I think, the moment you're competitive and you can't or don't want to accept that a glitch happened, some viewers may not even notice it. But for a guy like Travis and his dad, who was in the TV business, and I worked with his dad at KSL, you can't accept it. So, Trav's a competitor, man, and he will let you know what works and doesn't. And so as long as you got a line of communication, that's the biggest thing. You can't hold it in. If you let it out and then you put it on the table and say, hey, this didn't work, or you know what, I blew it, or you didn't give me the cue right, or we got the cards mixed up on the promo, all those things come into play and you fix it and then you move on, because it's just like losing a game or winning a game. Okay, that was one of 82. Guess what? We're on a flight right now and we're leaving Brooklyn and making our way to Chicago, and we can't worry about it. You just have to kind of let it fall off your shoulders and say, okay, let's, and luckily, honestly, Spence, you'll learn this too. Next broadcast is just around the corner, and you can go back and find yourself again and feel good about the work you do.
Yeah, you can't take anything personally, right? You understand that we're all doing a thing. We're all trying to do our best, put a good product. And if there's a time where maybe your patience runs thin and you say something that maybe it's a little aggressive, you just have to kind of let it go. Yeah, let it go. Yeah. Right.
Let it go, because look, it's everyone's competitive, and the emotions of the moment, you have to understand it, and then you let it go. It's like you see a coach on a sideline with a player, and it's a moment, and you hope that they have a good enough relationship that they both understand it's because they both care. Right. And they both want the best product, and they both want the best result. And that's what I learned early in my career. And that's what I try to take. Now, am I guilty? Hell yes. I mean, and I don't want to screw it up. And there are names and numbers that come at me left and right. They are changed on a daily basis. And there's new people that come and go. And you just do your best to stay in front of it. And you have to depend, too, on some PR help, PR staffs around the league. College football was that. The NFL, you got to know better because those guys were going to be on a roster for longer. But that's a big challenge, man, is just to go with the flow and try to communicate the best you can with the people that are actually running the show, running that department. And if you got a problem, you have to be open about it and try to fix it.
Yeah, when I was spending a little time with Travis after he announced that he was leaving, and I said, do you think those guys, Ian and Kevin, are they going to listen to you? And he just turned and looked at me and he said, they better.
Hey, they know Trav.
Yeah.
And he's been around the Olympics. He's done the World Feed. He's been at the finals. It's a no-brainer for him to have this job with Amazon.
Yep.
So, it was a perfect fit. And, instead of doing 4 games a week, he's down to all of 1. So pretty good deal. But it's a high-level broadcast, and they're trying to establish themselves as well. And you said it earlier, the NBA is now at all 3 levels of digital, over-the-air, and cable. And so, that's what they wanted. That's why TNT was kind of pushed aside. And, now you've got every level of social media communications and over-the-air broadcasts that fans can pick and choose on how they get how they get the NBA.
Well, Craig, thanks for the time, and I'll leave you with this: 3 more, buddy. That's all.
I'm heading to the bus. All
right. The great Craig Bolerjack, TV voice of the Utah Jazz, brought to you today by IFA. IFA Step 1 crabgrass preventer and lawn food gives your turf a strong start for months of thick emerald grass that will leave your neighbors green with envy. It provides a fast green up, helps your grass build up the energy it needs, and it defends against weeds. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Ben Jacobson, new head coach of Utah State, is our guest coming up next on ESPN 700. Crowned a national champion in college basketball last night. Michigan was able to take care of UConn. So Dusty May and the Wolverines are your national champ. We'll see if their head football coach can duplicate that performance, a guy we know pretty well around here. Let's get to know one of the new guys on the scene. Certainly not a new person to the world of college basketball, but the new head coach of Utah State is Ben Jacobson, and he is our guest on this Tuesday. Hello, Coach. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing well. Thanks for having us on.
No, I appreciate the time today. So let's just start right here. What was most attractive to you about the head coaching job for Utah State?
Yeah, being in town here, everything that I thought about it and heard about it, talked about it during the interview process. Man, you really feel it when you're here. So it's what's happened, over the past 5, 6, 7 years. It's what's happened 15 years ago with and longer than that with Coach Morrill. So the history and the tradition of the program, and then the support, the overwhelming support, and that's where I say being in town here for 10 days now, you feel that overwhelming support. And our new athletic director, we really had some great conversations. Our new president, a lot of support during the interview process as well. So you feel that alignment, which is so important when you're doing this, and you have the thoughts and the vision and the goals that we have for what we want to do here next. And then the move into the new Pac-12 and the makeup of the league. And so, just lots of parts and pieces that were really exciting. And again, having been here now for 10 days, you can just feel the energy around this place.
Certainly one thing, Coach, you're known for throughout the course of your 20 years at Northern Iowa is you won. You won a lot. You've won nearly 400 games in college basketball. You won 4 regular season championships and 5 tournament championships. What's your secret sauce? And are you confident that what you were able to do in other places will translate up to Logan?
Yeah, we are. We've got confidence in the way in which we've done it, and a big piece of it for us has been the approach in terms of keeping it pretty simple and being consistent with this. You start with the recruiting piece and in terms of how you want to go about it. And our formula has been to recruit high school players. We're going to continue to do that here. When we get through the season, now of course with the where we're at with the transfer portal and the name, image, and likeness, or the rev share now, the most important thing that we're doing now is retention in terms of our roster. And then when you get, past that point, then you've got the transfer portal, and you work to fill in the needs that you've got. So your roster is put together, and that piece of it won't change for us. We're going to work very, very hard to get to know everybody out here in terms of, players and their families, the high school coaches, the AU coaches, and develop those relationships so that we're able to be in a position to recruit the best high school players, out here in the state of Utah and in this region. And then again, when our season is done, we sit down, we have real conversations, and we talk about, next steps and how we're going to get there. And the most important piece is the retention of our roster. And then, like I said, the last thing is you use the portal to fill in the spots that you have to have. So that's been a big part of it, and the consistency in terms of what we're looking for. And, we're looking for good young guys from great families, competitive spirit and a high care factor. And then we try to keep it pretty simple.
Are you a coach who believes that, okay, this is my system, you will learn how to do this, or do you wait to see what sort of talent is at your disposal and then go from there?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great point. I've had some just terrific conversations with our players that are here, and the guys that are returning, and even some guys that have made the decision to go into the transfer portal. But the guys that are returning, with Mason and Carson and Braden and Kingston, and just terrific conversations with them about exactly your question. And as I talked about in my press conference, and I've talked about with them individually, really wanting to have conversations with them about what the success they've had, right, and what they've been doing offensively, what they've been doing defensively, other parts of the program, and going through that process. So yeah, as I've told them, I'm here to listen and learn, and where, when, how can I help you, and then we'll put our as we finish out our roster, right, and as that gets completed, then we'll put all the conversations into the mix, and we'll put together a plan. But it's going to be based on the feedback from from Mason and KT and Braden and Kingston and obviously my experiences and things that we have done. But it's going to be with their help and through those conversations.
So I had heard that Carson had committed to coming back. Am I understanding that you have a commit from Mason Falslev to return as well?
We do.
Oh, congratulations. Sincerely. That kid is awesome. That's great.
Yeah. He's a terrific basketball player, and I know I've only been here 10 days, but you talk about Mason and KT and Braden and Kingston and some of the other guys, that were on this roster that I've had a chance to sit down with in person. And you talk about people talk about culture and they talk about family, and man, have I felt that from the guys on this team. And I've referred to Mason and KT and Braden and Kingston because they've made their commitment to come back, but there's 4 or 5 other guys that I've been in conversation with, and a couple still deciding, and a couple that have decided to go elsewhere. But like I said, you talk about all of the really important things, trust and camaraderie, and man, do they have that going at a really high level. And Mason is, as we know, he's a tremendous basketball player. But he and I have sat and had a number of lengthy discussions and conversations, and I'm telling you, he's a better young man than he is a basketball player.
Man, that's great to hear. If that had been announced, I hadn't seen it. And Ben Jacobson is our guest. He's the new head coach of the Utah State basketball program, up with our friends in Logan. And, Coach, I do not have to tell you that you are the 4th coach in 6 years to be hired by Utah State. And look, I'm an adult, okay? I'm a grown-up. We all do what we do. With hopes at some point we receive promotions or more money or a bigger job or an opportunity to show that what we do in a certain place could work elsewhere. And so I understand how this ecosystem works, but I would imagine throughout the course of your conversations, you were asked more than a couple of times if you would be so kind as to live in Logan for longer than a year or 2, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that Cam or the president. We talked about what's happened here over the last 4 or 5 years, as you laid out, Spence. So we talked about that piece of it, but I don't know that they asked specifically or directly, hey, are you planning to stay for more than 1 year or 2 years or 3 years? So, and I think largely, Spence, you look at what I've done and I've only had 3 jobs in college coaching, and it's been 30 plus years that I've been in it. And one of the jobs was 9 months, just to kind of an in between the University of North Dakota and the University of Northern Iowa. So, I mean, that's obviously they've known that when they brought me into the conversation and could see my track record and how I've approached it. So, yeah, I just I love doing this, and I want to be able to do this here for a long time. And I think Cam and our president could feel that from me, that I'd love to do this here for a long time.
I wonder if you can answer a riddle that we all talk about here in state, and we're ESPN 700 in Salt Lake. We're the flagship home of Utah athletics. But we cover everything. We cover Utah, BYU, Utah State, the Jazz, our soccer club, the Mammoth. And whether it's Jared Calhoun or Danny Sprinkle or Ryan Odom or Craig Smith, or you reference the legend himself, Stu Morrill, I don't know if it's the Spectrum Magic. I don't know if it's the Cache County Cheese. I don't know if it's the water up there. Y'all just win basketball games, right? I mean, help us understand why it is such an unbelievably successful basketball school.
Well, what I can tell you from the things, just being here for the 10 days, right? The things that you talked about, and for those of us that wouldn't have been here, we can see the success, and we can see the conference championships and the NCAA tournaments, and wonder that same thing, right? So it's like, how does that happen year after year after year? And my 10-day insight, and a big reason why I'm so excited and so confident in the decision that I made, and feel so fortunate to be talking to you today is the Utah State head men's basketball coach, is Mason, KT, the guys that I've mentioned, just tremendous young guys. And you can feel, I talked about the energy you feel being on campus and being around the community, but you can feel how much this place means to, again, the guys that I have been with over the last week or so in conversation. And, that's a little bit of a different feeling, right? And I think that's such a big, the amount of pride that they take in Utah State and in representing Aggie Nation is really something when you sit down and talk with these players. And then they all talk about that the Spectrum it's the real thing. Like I've heard it from the players. I've heard it from just being around town a little bit. We were at breakfast downtown the other day, and 4 or 5 different people came up and said hello, and they talked about, man, we can't wait to get back into the Spectrum. And I said, Coach, now this is the real thing. So all of those things play a part in it. You talk about the support on campus, the support in the community, but to me, Spence, it's like, and that support is there, but there's an energy. And I know I've used that word a couple of times, but I'm just telling you, man, there's an energy around here. And so certainly on game night, we get inside that Spectrum, it's gonna matter, and it has for a long time.
Yeah, it's certainly undeniable. And, I was a student at the University of Utah in the 90s when a guy named Rick Majerus was coaching the team. And so the Huntsman Center back then was quite the venue. And, of course, Rick had a lot of unbelievably talented players in Keith Van Horn and Andre Miller and Michael Doliak and Britton Johnson. And, what Kevin Young has built down in Provo, and certainly plenty of great coaches in Provo, at BYU with Dave Rose, and I could keep going. There is something different about the Spectrum. There just is. It's just one of those undeniable things. I should probably know this. Have you ever coached a game in that building, or is this going to be a first-time experience for you?
Yeah, we were here. We were here a few years ago. Craig Smith was coaching the team. Sam Merrill, the big fella, was on the team. So we were here once, right? We were, and it was a better, as I said to some people, Spence, it was a better experience, which I think it usually is. I know it usually is for Utah State and for the Aggies that night than it was for us. And it is. It's different. Like you can feel the power of the Spectrum and the student section, the herd. I've been in here one time as an opponent.
One of the dynamics, and you touched on this earlier, and Ben Jacobson is our guest. He's the new head coach of Utah State. And, of course, Craig Smith was down here at Utah for a few years and got to know him. I played at Bountiful where Craig's son played, so we played for the same head coach. And, we had Coach Calhoun on the show, Danny Sprinkle, Ryan Odom as well. And the bottom line is, no matter where you're coaching college basketball now, you have to have the power of the purse behind you. You have to have the economic support in your favor. Now, you've already announced that Carson Templin and Mason Falslev and some others are coming back, so I would imagine the NIL endeavors up in Logan are where you needed to be, and I would imagine that you made sure that you had certain assurances in that direction before you took the job. Is that fair?
Yeah, certainly. Those are conversations that happened over the couple of days, and talking with our athletic director and with our president, and great conversations during that time. And it is that is now a piece that has to be a part of it in today's world of college athletics. There isn't any other way to do this than to have to have a level of support, so that you don't have to have the same number as everybody else but you got to be within range, and you got to be ahead of some of them, in your league or in your region if you're going to be in the game. And so we had great conversations during the interview process. It's been a great 10 days, in terms of the support and our ability to have conversations, whether it's guys that are here and Mason, KT, and the two young guys, or guys that we're talking to right now in the transfer portal, or junior college. You do, Spencer. There's no two ways around it. What I'm really excited about is the alignment with our athletic director and with our campus, in terms of being able to have the kind of support we need so that we can get these things done.
So Utah State is known for making the NCAA tournament. Of course, that's kind of the bar. Hasn't been to the Sweet 16 in quite some time. One of my favorite things, Coach, about your presser is you talked about the second weekend of the tournament and how great it is to make the tournament, but you want Aggie fans to experience what the second weekend of the NCAA tournament feels like. It feels like you've been there. So what does that feel like when you're able to take a school that maybe some consider not one of the bluer bloods in the sport and, do something special in the tournament, not just make the tournament?
Yeah, I've talked to some people about it, Spence, and we got back, but we had been to the tournament a handful of times prior to 2010 when we went to the Sweet 16, and we were there 3 times when I was an assistant coach, and it was our back-to-back year in 9 and 10. So and feeling like, wow, it can't get much more in the way of enthusiasm and notoriety, and than being in the NCAA tournament. And when we got back, the time from the win over Kansas, get home for a few days to get ready and ours was in St. Louis, to get down to St. Louis to play Michigan State. I hadn't seen anything like that. We show up to practice, and our practices are open, and we show up to practice, and I walk through our tunnel, and there's more media members in the tunnel and around the practice floor. I just hadn't experienced anything like that, in town. Obviously at the NCAA tournament, you've got all of it while you're at the venue, but I hadn't seen anything like it. There were media people from all over the country that wanted to be there and talk with our players and just be around what was happening at Northern Iowa. So it's just, in my experience, just another level, but multiply it by a couple. Okay. So that's when I talked about, hey, let's give that to, let's give that back to the herd, and let's give that back to our campus and to our president and our athletic director and the people that have been supporting Utah State for so long. And there are so many things that have been done at the highest level, like going to the NCAA tournament this number of years in a row. That's a lot of giving back and a lot of excitement and fun for the people that support us. But let's see if we can knock down one more door and get to that next weekend. And as our players have heard me talk about, there's one more weekend after that, and it's so. Yeah, we understand the challenge, of the new league. We understand the challenge of getting to the NCAA tournament, the challenge of getting to the weekend we're talking about. But we got a lot of people supporting us, and our job is to put our best foot forward, and we're going to work hard to do that.
I read you're the valedictorian of your high school, Coach?
You did a little digging, huh?
No, I just feel like you're too smart to be a coach then. What made you decide that you wanted to coach basketball?
Yeah, well, there usually is. There's a quick story about it. My graduating class was 36 people, right? and my dad was the principal.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so don't just take the valedictorian at face value. Okay?
Okay.
There's a little more to that.
Well, let me just follow up with this then, because I read about your playing career, and you were a guy that could distribute the basketball, finishing as the program's all-time assist leader. Seems like oftentimes great guards make great coaches. When did you get the coaching bug? How did that kind of happen?
Yeah, I would, as I looked back on it, my coaches going through all the way back to even junior high, and I didn't even think about being a coach at that time. But once I got into coaching, able to look that far back, just having really good coaches along the way. But where it really got going, Spence, was at the University of North Dakota. The coach I played for, Rich Glass, just a tremendous person and terrific coach, but just a tremendous person. I learned so much from him about relationships, and that they're far more important than the X's and O's. And but the guys I played with at the University of North Dakota, like we had it was the real deal. We were Division II at the time, but we went to back-to-back Elite Eights and had a chance to win a national championship. And that really, I think, sealed it for me as I went through those playing days as a college player. And but being around Coach Glass, Greg McDermott, the head coach at Creighton, who recently retired, was my assistant coach. So I've known him since I was 18 years old. Being around those guys, being around my college teammates, was really what sent me down this road.
You filled out your staff, or you're still working on that?
Yeah, still working on it.
Okay.
We've got a pretty good handle on it, but still working on it.
Fair enough. Hey, before I set you loose, I know you're married with a couple of kids. What does Coach Jacobson like to do when he's not grinding tape or on the recruiting trail? You swing a golf club? You like to get outside? What do you like to do when you're away from the game?
I play a little bit of golf, but that's for me more, hanging around with some guys and having a little bit of fun. What we like to do is, as a family, myself and our two boys, and I've got three brothers, and fishing is what we really like to do.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, you picked a great spot for either fishing or golf, and it's good living out here. You're going to learn that. And congratulations, sincerely, on a great run at Northern Iowa, and now on your new job. We're pulling for you. Thank you for the time, sir. Be well, okay?
Yep, thanks a lot.
All right, Ben Jacobson, the new head coach of Utah State after 20 very successful years at Northern Iowa, just introduced. And if that news had been announced, I hadn't heard it. So Carson Templin announced that he's going back to Logan. But according to Coach Jacobson, Mason Falslev has announced that he'll be back for Utah State as well. That is a big deal. I'm sure Mason received a ton of interest on the open market. All right, we're going to have Scott Spinelli stop by, another coach. He's going to walk us through some NCAA tournament storylines. Another coach, Pablo Mastroeni from RSL, later on. We got a busy Tuesday show, so don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Are we using YouTube TV in the studio now? Is that what's going on?
Yes.
It's asking me if I'm still watching. Clicking yes. How do I click yes? Do you know how?
Do you have a remote? Oh, no, you're.
So we're still.
I'll figure that out.
All right. So we still don't have our Dish network figured out. Now we're watching YouTube TV.
Apparently.
Okay.
Someone's got a subscription to both. But yeah, our Dish is out. We got to get that back before the Masters. I can't get interrupted on this.
No doubt. Are you a YouTube TV guy? You are.
They offered like a lower tier if you just basically want sports and news. So I bid on that.
I feel like every single outlet offers something like that, and then after 3 months, they just start charging you $80 more, and you get everything that you don't want any of it.
Yeah, I'll probably not do it for too long, and then cancel it during the summer, redo it during the fall for football. Wait till they offer me a good deal, jump in and out, do the thing.
See, I always have the best of intentions with this stuff. Like, a streaming service will be like, hey, if you want to watch this NFL game on Sunday night, you got to sign up. And it's $3 this week. And then I sign up and forget to cancel it. And then suddenly
$80 the next week.
Yeah, they ding me for $90 and there's nothing on there that I watch.
Yeah. Yeah, my streaming subscription situation very much changes depending on the sports season, depending on what's going on. I very much will, there's nothing I've got on Hulu, I'll cancel it, and then maybe a series drops on there that I want to see. You wait until they offer you the come back $2.99 for 6 months, and then okay, there you go. So I'm going up and down. I play the game a little bit.
I feel like
unfortunately,
I feel like it should be illegal.
We should just picture this. Maybe this big dish on the top of your house, and it gets all the channels, and it puts them all into one guide in one place, and you bundle it all together, and your remote just goes up and down, picks the channel.
It would be nice.
Maybe you can pay by the channel. But yeah, they rope you in and find a way to get your money out of you.
And there are some services, not just TV streaming services. I'm not going to say it on air, but I have two examples floating in my head where it was literally not. And look, I am completely open and honest about the fact that I am now an old man. And the digital world is something that I just try to get through every single day. It's to the point now where Connor gets embarrassed when he watches me send text messages. He's like, that takes you that long? Like, look, dude, okay, I was raised before the internet. Leave me alone.
I'm not a bot. Okay,
once upon a time, I did answer a rotary phone if I wanted to talk to a friend. Oh, yeah, and if I wanted to call my girlfriend, I had to call her house and talk to her mom or dad for a while before they decided to put her on the phone. So if I can't send super fast text, just chill out. So I'm admitting that there are several things about, the digital age and era that could be user error, okay? I've had two services, well-known services, over the past couple of months where they simply do not let you cancel. They get you by the cojones. You get the auto subscription. Okay, they get your credit card information, they get your bank account information. And there was one of them where the link to cancel sends you to a website that is not active.
There you go.
No one answers
That's
the phone.
Smart.
No, it should be illegal. It's robbery.
That's
is what
genius.
it is. It's not. See, you're being co-opted by the current situation where there's no regulation for anything. By the way, do you have an update on the grift?
I thought you were doing a wellness
Oh, that's right. I was going to start a cult. It's going to be like a leader of a wellness cult.
Yoga, vitamins,
sunshine, cold plunge,
morning sun,
hydration, breath work. That's right. Can we do like a ESPN 700 Bitcoin?
I think so.
Okay, let's do that.
Run it by Blake.
No, I will not do that. I'm not going to run it by the guy that's in charge of budgets here. I feel like there's some sort of crypto Bitcoin angle that we could explore in order to take advantage of the fact that right now there's no regulations? The point is
carbon credits.
Oh, that's right.
We'll plant some trees.
What about alfalfa? Or is the market cornered on alfalfa?
It kind of is, but then you got like a real thing you gotta do. That's not a grift. That's just a business.
I'm not going to learn how to
plant
farm
trees.
I'm not going to learn how to farm alfalfa at this point in my life.
We can plant a bunch of trees and then circumvent. I won't go there.
It should. Well, I know what you're about to say. I've actually learned more about that over the past little bit. I think it was you who gave me the heads up, so I kind of learned about what's going on there. Some horses overseas being serviced. Is that true?
Yeah.
Some Arabian horses with some Utah alfalfa.
Arabian horses, Wagyu beef over in China. A lot of alfalfa is exported. Yes.
It should be illegal to have somebody sign up for your service and then make it impossible to cancel and then have a customer service line where humans do not speak to you. That should be illegal.
I think it is, but there are like little loopholes and whatnot you can do to, make it more difficult.
Twice over the past 6 months, out of frustration, I just...
Name them.
No, I can't. Because you never know who's listening.
They're going to sue you?
No, if they're listening... Look, I saw the Melania video with a robot, all right? I'm wide awake now.
Play-Doh.
Twice.
Your friend.
I can't believe you remember the name. Twice over the past 6 months, simply out of frustration, I have canceled my debit card.
Oh.
Had a new one sent. But the problem with that is then you have to keep track of what you had that tracking anyway. And if you forget, suddenly you're hit with late fees and you're like, hey, they're like, where's your information? So you have to, I don't know, man. It feels like a rat race. It feels like a continuous race to try to stop people from stealing your money.
Hey, there you go. You're catching on there. It is a rat race of some sort. Don't get too nihilistic though. Then our show would. There's a balance that you have to keep some positivity, so I can do the nihilism.
I spray positivity all over the show for 4 hours every day. Let's be very clear.
We appreciate that.
Do I? Feel like I try to. I don't.
No.
What's are you noticing getting it worse? Are you noticed that it's getting worse?
Only that day when you were doing grievances with OC.
That's going to be every Friday.
That was.
We're going to unload. We're going to unload grievances every Friday. By the way, Masters will start on Thursday. ESPN 700 Festival of Tees, powered by the Utah Golf Association. We're giving away rounds of golf from the best courses in the state. Listen to OC from 11 to 2, and listen to me from 2 to 6 for positivity and your chance to win golf each day from ESPN 700. Details can be found at ESPN700.com. Text now to win 877-353-0700. 877-353-0700. We're sending you today to El Monte Golf. Text your choice to win the Masters. You're a Masters guy. You have a pick? You want to wait until Friday? No, it has to be Thursday. No, it has to be tomorrow because it starts Thursday.
Yeah, I'll give you a pick tomorrow. It's tough because Scotty's been so dominant over the past 2-3 years, but not necessarily the past several months. Rory, the number 2 golfer in the world, is he's really just tough to read at the moment. He's very up and down. Off the course, apparently, as well. I don't know.
Without your boy Eldrick, who apparently, by the way, is in Switzerland. Did I read that? That's where the jet landed?
I like that.
Tiger over in Switzerland. Because I know that's your guy. So do you have a rooting favorite since he's not in the field? Is there somebody you would like to see win?
Not really anymore. Tony Finau didn't qualify. Our guy Marco Mira's retired officially. Even though he's been retired and doing the Champions Tour stuff, his last round was in 2024. So, yeah, not a particular rooting interest. In the golf world, I do like to see, the best in the world at the top of their game. So if Scotty and Rory and those guys can play well, it'll be good to get a good showing there. And Augusta is one where usually if you're not a top 10, 15 golfer in the world coming in and in recent standings, you're usually not going to go and rake through that course. It's just too tough. So, No, outside of that, I don't really have a rooting interest. It would be fun to see someone that you really, really, really don't consider to win it, see them make a run. It's always fun.
Scotty Scheffler is your favorite to win his third Masters, but he has lost some momentum. Okay, so Scheffler right now is plus 485. He was plus 400 last week and plus 380 2 weeks ago. That was the shortest odds that he'd had all year. Jon Rahm is second. Bryson DeChambeau's third. Now, Bryson has won his last two starts. Rory McIlroy is fourth. Ludwig Oberg is fifth. That's a sneaky little pick. He's been playing well. Then it's Cam Young, Brooks Koepka, and Akshay Bhatia. There's a make-the-cut market as well. But, yeah, first time no Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson since 1994. You know what's always fun? Unfortunately, it never lasts. It'd be cool to see a guy like Fred Couples just like be in the mix on Sunday. Usually some of these older guys that know the course left and right at the end of the first round are like top 5, top 10. But the walk apparently is so hard that third, fourth round, there's a big gap between riding in a cart, playing 18 holes, and walking 72 at a place like Augusta. It'd be nice if one of these old guys was like in the mix on Sunday.
Right. You look at it, I think 7,800 yards up and down throughout. It really is like hiking 7-8 miles, right? It's not an easy one to walk. So it's pretty demanding when it comes to, not that it's a marathon, but when it comes to the golf world, as far as courses go, it's one of the tougher ones on tour in that regard. It's why Tigers was so impressive when he came off the broken leg, because he was doing Navy SEAL training or some weird stuff. And then obviously the one where he came back after the car accident in 2019. Just, you don't usually see those guys, the older guys that just have a great feel for the course, get to Sunday and then still have enough in them to get over the hump. That's why Scotty, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, as you mentioned, are the odds-on favorites who, you look at Justin Rose, you look at a Jordan Spieth, players who have won there as well, know what it takes to win at Augusta. Those are maybe some to keep an eye out on.
The only local tie, I think, is Mike Weir. And Mike is from Canada. We call him Draper's Mike Weir, but there's a Canadian flag next to his name. I believe that's the only local tie. It's wild to consider that Tony Finau played alongside Tiger Woods in 2019 when he won that Masters Open, that Masters Championship. And I was lucky enough to watch that last round live. Are you a golf watcher? I didn't used to watch a ton of golf. And now certainly the majors or like a Sunday tournament if the leaderboard is good. Are you wanting to sit down and watch an entire round of golf?
Similarly, if it's like for instance, when Tiger won in 2019, I watched every shot of that round, right? 5 hours, didn't look away. That kind of thing will bring me in. If it is a major, I will try to watch a good portion of all 4 rounds, but if it's like an off week of Valero Texas Open by chance, I'll probably keep an eye on the leaderboard and if it's close on a Sunday, I'll tune in. But other than that, it's pretty major specific.
We have the details of Michael Malone's new contract. This is just spilling in. North Carolina hired Michael Malone, who won an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets. Now Carolina is trying the pro model on the football side of things with Bill Belichick, and that's been mixed results at best so far. $8.3 million across a 6-year contract. That makes him one of the top 5 highest paid coaches in all of college basketball. First time that Carolina went out of the Carolina family in 50 years. He takes over for Hubert Davis. That's it's a lot of money to pay a coach that's never coached college basketball before. We'll see if the pro to college model can work for Carolina on the basketball side in a way that it didn't on the football side, at least so far. referenced this earlier. The college basketball transfer portal is open, and nothing as of now is at least that I can see as far as rumors concerning Utah basketball. Terrence Brown in the transfer portal. He was honorable mention all Big 12. Probably played his way into a nice little contract somewhere. Maybe he comes back. Kiana Dawes now in the transfer portal as well. So we don't necessarily have anything to bring you concerning what the talent level will look like for Utah basketball. As Michigan was crowned the college basketball champion last night, in what I would characterize as a good, not great game, try to kind of understand what sort of lessons you can learn from a local standpoint, watching the NCAA tournament. Hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that I can say the following sentence into this microphone. It has been a decade since Utah basketball was in the NCAA tournament. I know we have some renovations planned for the Huntsman Center. Not exactly sure what that's going to look like. The rumors are they're going to kind of make it a smaller, more intimate venue. I have mixed feelings about that. But it's been too long since that building has felt like what it did when I was in school there in the 90s, and I don't know how you can get it back other than, consistent winning. The hardest part, and I don't know how applicable this is on the football side of things, and I hate to be the guy that always harkens back in the day, but if you're going to change over your roster every year, and maybe you just are, Michigan just won the national championship, and every member of their starting five was a transfer. Yaxa Lendenborg, Morez Johnson Jr., Ade Mara, Elliot Cadeau, by the way, what a tournament for him. Final Four, most outstanding player, and then Namari Burnett. They were all transfers. All five of the Wolverine starters were transfers. UConn had a group of them as well, including Terrace Reed Jr., who started his career at Michigan. And the last year of Juwan Howard's tenure there was the last year for Terrace Reed Jr., ended up in UConn. And from the community perspective, how important is it for you to get to know the players in order for you to kind of latch onto the team? A guy like Keith Van Horn or Andre Miller or Michael Doliak or Britton Johnson back when the Huntsman Center was rocking and Majerus was the coach, stuck around for 2, 3, 4 years. You got to know him. Easier way to build a program. That's not how it works anymore. So if it's going to be a year-over-year situation where the majority of the roster is turned over, does that affect your decision to not go to the Huntsman Center? I don't know that I buy the narrative that Utah is now a football school and therefore it can never be a basketball school. I mean, we just saw Michigan win the national championship in basketball. And the Big House obviously is packed every single week. There are a grip of schools across the landscape of collegiate athletics that have great basketball and football programs and also great basketball and football support. The basketball conversation with Utah Hoops is interesting because it's chicken or the egg stuff. It would be a lot easier for Alex Jensen or Craig Smith or Larry Kraskowiak or Jim Boylan or Ray Giacoletti or any of the coaches that have coached at Utah to attract talent if they can bring recruits to a building that's full. That's obvious. Certainly Kevin Young and now Ben Jacobson, who was our guest earlier. Ben Jacobson can sell the magic of the Spectrum. If you've never been there, it is an unbelievable college basketball environment. And they do a great job with game ops at the Marriott Center, and that place is jam-packed, and that student section is crazy. That's an ace in the hole if you're a coach. If you can have a recruit or a transfer attend a game and experience how electric that is. On the other side of it, with all of the coaching changes, roster turnover, and quite frankly, lack of winning and entertaining basketball, what would get you to the Huntsman Center is my question. Because we talk about it all the time, like great game promotions, great game deals. The building badly needs a facelift. I've talked about the concessions. Something other than a stale hot dog and a flat Diet Coke would be nice. So maybe the renovated building will make a bit of a difference. I do think if given time, Alex is the guy for the job. But there's no such thing as a great coach without great players. And for the frustration that seemed to set in for Utah men's basketball this year, if you were watching, and I honestly don't know if you were, but if you were, how many times were you watching and you saw Alex coaching a team with more talent than his peer? In conference play, the answer to that might be 0 times. Non-con, they played some lesser teams, so that's a different deal. We're able to get some wins early. I mean, even the games that the first BYU game went down to the wire here in Salt Lake. The second BYU game was close until about 12 minutes left in the second half. And it felt like it was a miracle that Utah was even in the game based off the talent BYU had. So, certainly winning basketball, entertaining basketball, maybe a venue that has been renovated and has a just more of an aesthetically pleasing feel to it. It's tough because that building has so much history. And when I go, I love it only because I experienced it when it was great. But it is outdated. It does need a facelift. It does need some love. And it sounds like that's on the way. And maybe that will help. These things don't necessarily improve dramatically overnight. The BYU crowd was good, but probably 30 to 40% blue. So a lot of BYU fans in the building. So you're not going to get that every single night. But Rice Eccles every week. You guys are there. And there are a lot of you that aren't there that wish you could be there. Football program, obviously, with a proof of concept over the past 10, 15 years that the basketball program simply doesn't have. But I do think it was a great NCAA tournament, and I do watch it through the prism. I mean, starting on Selection Sunday, I watch it through the prism of what it's like when you can watch Utah sitting there, players and coaches waiting for their seed and their matchup and their region and what that reaction would be like. So now the portal is open. I'll let you know that we're going to catch up with Alex next week, both on the podcast space and then on this show. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We will catch a break, but we'll talk more NCAA tournament basketball with Scott Spinelli, good friend of the show, former college coach. Pablo Mastroeni later on. Then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program right here on a Tuesday on ESPN 700. Michigan is your college basketball national champ. I'll call it a good, not great game last night. I think UConn was able to basically allow that game to unfold the way they wanted it to, a little bit of a slower pace. A Big East game as opposed to a Big Ten game. But let's get to our next guest so he can help us understand how it went down. Longtime college basketball coach. Great to have Scott Spinelli back on the drive on a Tuesday. Hello, Scott. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Great to be here with you again.
Appreciate the time. So if I say to you, good, not great game last night, what's your reaction?
Well, I think it was a game of just incredible effort on both ends. I mean, if you watch it, obviously it wasn't a free-flowing game by any means. I mean, UConn mucked it up a little bit in terms of, how hard they play. And I think Michigan had no choice but, to play just as hard. And look, every possession, mattered, every pass, every rebound, there were bodies flying around. And to your point, it was kind of like a typical Big East game. But again, when you look at the statistics, for UConn to make 9 threes, Michigan 2, and then UConn out-rebounded them and still lost, you would have never thought that going into the game.
So, it's a cliche to talk about UConn winning in March. But ultimately, when Danny Hurley is asked about how he's able to do this, his third Final Four in 4 years, second to John Wooden only in winning percentage in NCAA tournament games, it's very easy to say we believe that we win in March, but they do, Coach. What do you attribute it most to under Danny Hurley?
Well, I think they've established an incredible identity, a culture. One of the things that UConn has really done, I mean, first of all, they're going to defend. As we all know, great defense starts with pressure on the ball. They get into the ball as well as anybody in college basketball. They're very physical. They help one another out. But I think it gets to a point when you really watch them is how well they execute in the half court. And again, their identity, half court with all that screening action on both sides of the floor, it's kind of old school in the sense that, these guys know how to use screens. If you go one Miami move, they'll fade, bump back. If you trail it, they'll curl it. If you get caught up, they'll catch and set their feet shot ready and make shots. And so I think the identity of what they've established offensively is something that also has kind of contributed to their success. But beyond all of that, they've got great roster construction. They've had retention. And I think, again, that championship pedigree, the energy of which Coach Hurley, instills, these guys will run through a wall for him. I think all of that together makes UConn what they've been over the last several years.
Concerning last night, Michigan had been scoring at an incredibly high clip, about 94 points per game. They had been smoking teams by about 22, 23 points a game. What did that performance from Michigan say to you, where it's like, all right, you want to slow this down? You want to make this a Big East game? Well, we can beat you like that too. What stood out most?
Well, listen, that was very impressive what they were able to accomplish because, as you know, Michigan wants to increase possessions. They want to giddy up. They want to go. And, again, with the way UConn controlled tempo last night, they had a real chance. I mean, they make a couple more shots and, a couple calls maybe go the other way. I mean, that game comes down to maybe a last-second shot. But, the way Michigan was able to play that style, again, get out rebounded, make only 2 3-point shots. A kid like McKinney, who I think has got a tremendous career in the NBA, a freshman for them, 2 of 9. I mean, they were able just to find a way. And again, it speaks to the belief, the culture of what, Coach May has even created there. Look, those were all transfers. And when you look at their team, there was a togetherness about them. That's not easy to do by getting transfers with really not a lot of retention. Guys were playing for one another. They were getting the best shot for the team. Nobody was looking over their shoulders in terms of, who's scoring and not scoring. They were out there to win. And that's a credit to Coach May and his staff as well.
So Braylon Mullins has kind of become this rising star for UConn as a result of the shot he hit against Duke, then hit a dagger shot against Illinois. And you certainly can see the skill You can see, what he is able to do to read the game with the ball in his hands. He can handle it. He can dribble it. He can pass it. He can shoot it. I don't know that I see an NBA-ready player, though, Coach. I mean, if I was an NBA scout watching Braylon Mullins play, I would say go back to school. I would say get stronger. A lot of people believe he's one and done. He was recruited to be one and done. 4 of 17 last night. Just didn't feel like he was ready for the moment. Tell me what you saw.
Well, first of all, let's talk about how this, the experienced players and the money that's being thrown around in college is going to be able to keep a lot of kids in school for a long time. And I do think that helps the NBA game quite a bit. Look, think back to when, Larry Bird and Magic were coming out. You couldn't even go to the NBA until after your junior year of college. And that's what made the NBA so competitive back then. You had grown men. And so I do think a kid like Mullins, normally speaking in the old, way of things where you weren't getting paid, at least legally, you basically would probably say, okay, let me go to the NBA because that's kind of where the NBA game is. But to your point, right now, the physicality in which the NBA is being, played with these older, experienced guys now, Mullins could do another year in college, and I'm sure he's going to make a tremendous amount of money in doing so if he does come back. But at the same time, let me just say this to you about Mullins. He's got a competitive fire to him.
Yeah, he does.
Look, I mean, there's no analytic. I laugh because I think sometimes in the scouting side of putting a team together, whether it's college, high school, prep school, college, NBA, a lot of times these analytics take precedence, but you really can't put the analytic on paper for somebody's desire, will, their work ethic, and I think he has all of those qualities.
So if you were advising him, and your point about the money is well taken, if you were advising him and he called you and said, Coach, should I go back to school or should I try the draft waters? I mean, mock drafts have him as a mid-first round pick, but if you were advising him, what would you tell him to do?
Well, look, for me, there's always room for somebody with that kind of positional versatility, size, who can really shoot the basketball. I mean, look, we all know right now that three-point line is really where the game is being won or lost at the next level in the NBA. So I do think, you can make a case for him there. But for me, and what I would ask him and tell him to do, look, you're going to have another tremendous team next year at UConn, the way they're going to construct that roster. And if you do come back, you're going to get, I'm sure, a lot of compensation, a lot of money. I mean, you're talking about 7 figures now, guys. I mean, this is not a 6-figure player. You're talking about 7 figures between revenue share, between collective, between name, image, likeness. So he's not going to be missing out that much in terms of, making the money that he would, miss out on if he doesn't, go to the NBA. So I do think there's a lot of reasons why. I would tell the kid, look, based on what, if you're looking to win a national title, the NBA is going to be there for you. Let's run it back another year and come back to college. That's what I would ask him or say that in terms of my recruiting pitch to him. It's
an old cliche, Coach, as you know, in NCAA tournament basketball, the guard play rules the day. I just thought Elliot Cadeau was brilliant. Carolina transfer. Did a great job of drawing fouls, did a great job of just letting the game come to him. Tell me what you saw. Final Four most outstanding player, Elliot Cadeau.
Yeah, no, Cadeau was exceptionally good on both ends of the floor. I mean, his presence out there, when he was out with foul trouble early, you could see Michigan was kind of struggling to get any type of, or initiate any type of real organized offense. And so his presence on both ends made a huge difference. And to your point, he's savvy. He's an experienced guard who's been there, at the highest of levels. He's been in those battles before where even though it was the national title game, he wasn't phased. He was leading his team by, his spirit and by his leadership. So, no, I thought his leadership yesterday was on full display. And again, when you think about, somebody like him and what he brings to the Michigan team, it wasn't necessarily all measured with statistics in the box score. It was his presence on the floor that really did make a huge difference for Michigan, not only last night, but throughout the whole season.
So Ade Mara was at UCLA and didn't play a lot, didn't play very much, and, of course, transfers, and was a key cog in so many different ways. I mean, Terrace Reed Jr., who was a Michigan kid at one point. I mean, look, he still had 13 and 14, but he was 4 of 12 from the floor. And I think a lot of people leading up to the game thought if Terrace Reed Jr. could cause some havoc in the paint and maybe get a Demara in foul trouble, that would change the entire scope. But what have you seen, not just last night, but all year, the evolution of this kid who stands at 7'2", 7'3"?
Well, yeah, and I think, again, sometimes it takes a year, right, to get acclimated, especially a kid maybe coming over from Spain or from Europe. And I think that kind of, transition is somewhat normal, the progression. I mean, look, the American game and the European game are so different. The physicality, the speed of the game at which they're played here in the U.S., and, the European game is a lot more, in terms of skill, savvy. We talked about that last night a little bit on one of the pregame shows. But, he's developed nicely. And I think the message here is very simple for all players out there. If you get into this transfer portal and you're really building a roster and you're evaluating these guys, system fits matter. Who is looking for what type of player, how that system or how that coach is going to utilize you, it does make a difference. And sometimes caught in this are, the agents and the kids looking for, I want to get more money than this guy. And that's not really the right way, to look at this thing. If you're looking to develop, you've got to get in the right system with the right coaches. And so not necessarily meaning you might not get the most money, but you might be the best system fit for that program. And that Mara obviously is a perfect example of it.
So as it pertains to the way the game was called, I often feel like college basketball is over officiated. And a lot of tough whistles, I thought, went against UConn. If you question whether or not that's true, you can watch their coach on the sideline. I get that's kind of his deal. but you tell me what you saw with the officiating last night.
Look, I think for anyone, we all got to understand that, officiating is going to be what it is, right? And I don't think you can look at that and say to yourself, that was a reason why, Michigan won or why UConn lost. Obviously there's going to be calls throughout the game, that you kind of question on both ends. But it's part of it, right? It's the human element of officiating any sport. And I don't think that's something that, we should be saying, if they got a better whistle. Yeah, listen, these games are decided – by the guys, that are playing. And unfortunately, sometimes, I think there's too much of an emphasis on, hey, they shot more free throws than we did. Well, listen, sometimes other teams are attacking the basket, harder than you are, and you're settling for three. So I don't think you can make much of it other than to tell you I thought the game was an absolute brawl. I just thought it was a alley brawl where both teams were just going, toe-to-toe. It wasn't as fun to watch necessarily just because the game wasn't, again, up and down like Michigan wanted to play. But it was a tough, hard-nosed battle last night.
I know that Dan Hurley's not the only college coach that's a little bit, how shall we say, animated on the sideline, Coach. But I don't know that I've ever seen a coach make contact with an official and not have anything come of it. Now, that would have been a really harsh technical foul after that unbelievable shot by the Mullins kid that led them to the win. But as a former college coach, what did you make of that bizarre situation at the end of Duke UConn?
I just think Coach Hurley is so passionate. He loves his players. You can see that. They play so hard for him. He's a dad. He's a good person. And I think sometimes you just become, him and a lot of other coaches, including myself when I was coaching, sometimes you become so passionate and animated, it makes it look worse than it really is. I don't think there's any intent at all by Coach Hurley to be making contact with some of the officials in a derogatory way. I know it might seem that way, it look that way, but I really don't believe that. And look, every coach has their own style. Some are, very laid back and their guys are playing just as hard. Others are passionate, energetic, and their team feeds off that. So I guess the thing to look at here is, look, the intent of Coach Hurley is he's out there with so much passion, energy, and it becomes infectious amongst his guys. His team plays so hard for him that you really have to look at it from that end as opposed to maybe anything negative.
We're out here in Big 12 country with Utah and BYU, And I felt like most of the year, the Big 12 had a case as the best basketball conference in America. Underperformance. Iowa State was knocked up. They got some injuries. I thought Houston had a chance to win it. Arizona made the Final Four. But overall, not sure that the Big 12 showed the way most of us were expecting in this tournament. What are your thoughts on just the Big 12 this year as a whole, Coach?
It's hard to say that because, even in the years, coaching, we were at Texas A&M and Maryland and some of the places I've been, a lot of times when you get into these NCAA tournament games, it's all about matchups. And, you have to look across and see who you're playing. I know that, for years, teams that would be playing against Syracuse would always be, oh, my God, we're going to play against this dreaded 2-3 zone. And so every game, and look, the game of basketball is about matchups. That's what it's about. And I think some of this gets lost in that. The other side of this, when I will say this, the Big 12, sometimes the leagues are so good that these teams are a little bit worn out. Look, a college basketball season, similar to that of an NBA, there's only a certain amount of games, and it's not only a physical toll that it takes on the players, but there's a mental side of this as well. And I do think, to your point, the Big 12 was a man's league. It was a really competitive league this year, and sometimes that comes back to hurt you, as the season goes later into March. So there's a couple reasons why, but again, the league is excellent. Enjoyed watching it. I actually thought Houston was going to get there. But, at some point here, one of these Big 12 teams is definitely going to break through and win it all.
So one of the things you were known for is you didn't just coach college basketball. You work with some young prospects and help them move on to play professional basketball. And we have an NBA team here, Coach, in the Utah Jazz that are delicately approaching the season to hold on to their draft pick, if you haven't noticed. And ultimately, we'll see if they finally get the lottery luck that they've never had before to grab the number 1 overall pick. But I wanted your take on the debate that seems to be going on. A.J. DeBonsa played his college ball about 40 miles from where we are in Salt Lake. Darren Peterson from Kansas in the mix. Cameron Boozer from Duke in the mix. If the Jazz get the number 1 overall pick, which of these young prospects do you like the most?
For me, first of all, let me go back to what you said earlier. Listen, Danny Ainge is somebody that, growing up here in the Boston area, he was an incredible role model for us to watch. Coming up, just the way he approached the game. He played the game of basketball the way Coach Hurley coached it in terms of the passion and the energy, and he played to win. And I don't think there's anything to this, listen, in my side of this, I don't think there's anything to this tanking side. If you're asking me the number 1 pick, for me personally, I don't think there's any question. I think Boozer is to me, the most skilled guy. And I think the game, the way it's played today, to have somebody that has his type of skill with his versatility, I love his demeanor on the floor. The other thing about him, too, that, he really is kind of you've never really, people don't talk about, is all he's ever done is win. And I think that matters, too. Knowing how to win is an incredible habit that if you've been there, done that before, it carries you usually for a long time. So for me, I love Boozer. Listen, AJ is somebody from the Boston area. I love him. I think he's going to be a tremendous pro as well. But again, I think it all is going to come down to, what type of player they're looking for as it relates to their need. And I think that's what it will what eventually it will take to get whoever they're, thinking about drafting.
Let me follow up with your thoughts on the Darren Peterson storyline this year. A lot of criticism from the outside looking in, Coach, and I just thought he was hurt because I watched him a lot in high school. He didn't look as explosive, at least as consistently. But there are these moments where you watch him play, like when BYU played Kansas, he outplayed AJ. And feels like there's a lot to like about him. I guess we'll get the medicals come combine time, but you gave us your thoughts on Cameron Boozer and AJ. What about Darren? What about Darren Peterson? What kind of pro do you think he's going to be?
No, I think Darren's going to be an excellent pro. And, some of this, what I've learned is as you get older and you have your own children and you look at this, it's hard. You don't really want to judge because you really don't know what's going on, right? Especially in today's climate, as you know, you have kids that might have anxiety issues. There could be things happening at home that none of us know about. And so I find it very, very, for me anyways, I wouldn't judge any of that until, I'm there speaking to this young man and I'm kind of evaluating him in terms of the intel side of it, what you find out. But he is a terrific talent. I think he's going to be a very good NBA player as well. And again, unfortunately, obviously this year there were some things that were going on, but I've learned not to judge a long time ago. And again, you see so many different things in this as a leader, educator, coach, parent, that, you always kind of keep an open mind first before you kind of make any or rush to any judgment there.
One of the best jobs in college basketball certainly lies in Chapel Hill, where Hubert Davis is out after 5 years. And Carolina has elected to do with their basketball program what they did with their football program and hire a former NBA coach who has won a championship in Michael Malone. What do you think? What do you think? Former NBA guy now going back to the college ranks.
Well, in the old days, I would have kind of questioned it a little bit, but now with the way recruiting is, look, the days of recruiting and going on the road like we used to, 30 straight days and chasing kids around and begging them to come and having 3 coaches deep in the stands or 4 coaches deep to show your commitment for the kid and his family, those days are over. And so a guy like Coach Malone, who's been in the NBA, the recruiting side of this is pretty much going to come down to several things. One is going to come down to your ability to evaluate. You've got to be able to evaluate talent. And it's not always going to be the player that has the most points or the most rebounds. You've got to be able to decipher which player was used within the system they played in and try to imagine that player within the system you're recruiting him to. So I think that's number one. Number two, the other side of this is being somebody like Coach Malone with his experience, he's going to be able to get the best intel that he can on these guys. He's got experience at building rosters. He's got a great name. He's won an NBA championship, and probably bigger than all of this, the way you're coaching today in college is that of a pro side of this. Years ago, I was coaching in the minor leagues, and how you communicate with these players in this day and age matters. It's not just going to class and getting your grades anymore. You've got to talk to these kids like, hey, listen, you don't feel good, you got to push through it. You're getting paid to produce, to perform, and with that, you're going to be held accountable. And if you don't, just like us in the real world, you don't produce, somebody else is going to be lurking behind you. So I think Coach Malone, having that experience, is really going to help him as well in knowing how to communicate with his players.
Before I say you lose, Coach, we are the flagship home of Utah Athletics, and I was a student at Utah in the 90s when a guy named Rick Majerus was coaching the team. And, we had some decent squads back then, and it was a lot of fun to be around when the basketball program was really ticking. One of Rick's former players, longtime NBA assistant coach Alex Jensen, has been hired to kind of revitalize the program. Rough year one for Al. Transfer portal's open. Talk about the dynamic of rebuilding a team in one season and maybe some thoughts on what we could see from Utah basketball next year.
Yeah, I think, again, when you get into this, your first year, most of the time, especially at a place like Utah, you're trying to feel your way around. And I'm sure now that you've got your feet on the ground, you probably understand a little bit more of what you're looking for. I will say this, in this, portal, day, there is so many good players in this transfer portal right now that if you spend the time and you're really evaluating these guys, and again, it's not traveling on the road 30 days. You've got to sit there. You've got to watch film. You've got to roll up your sleeves, and then you've got to trust some of your staff members as well. But I do think, if you really get into this portal, and you've watched the game, which I know he has, I think, he's going to turn that thing around because, again, there's really good players. You don't have to necessarily go out and always get the guys that are looking for the 7-figure deals. There's some great guys with value out there that you can evaluate as long as you roll up your sleeves and do the work. So I'm sure Coach Jensen is going to get it done there. Obviously, I've been out there years ago in the old WAC when I was at Wyoming, and, we've had our days against BYU 2 years in a row when I was at Texas A&M in the NCAA tournament. So I know what kind of basketball state Utah is, but I know he's going to turn it around there. And I just think it comes down to getting that first year under your belt and then really knowing what you're looking for. But make no mistake about it, there's a lot of talent in this transfer portal right now.
Coach, thank you, sir. I appreciate the time. Hell of a tournament, and congratulations to Michigan. You stay safe and be well, okay?
Thanks for having me, okay? Have a great night.
All right, Scott Spinelli, former college coach. Now he does some analysis for our friends at the Believe Network. A little bit of breaking news. Seydou Traore is in the transfer portal. That was announced. Of course, Terrence Brown in the transfer portal. Let's see. Keanu Dawes also in the transfer portal. So it's a 15-day window, and you don't have to choose your team, but you do have to enter the portal in order to transfer. And today is the first day that it's opened. We will give you an update if any news comes our way. All right, before we catch a break, we had a new client on the show. Excited for this because I work with them myself and have for about 3 years. It'll be 3 years in August. It's our friends at Game Day Men's Health. So we have turned our calendars to April, which means you have 3 months of data as to whether or not you followed up on that New Year's resolution to get back in shape or get into better shape or maybe lose weight. How's it going so far? Well, if you're like me, I did this a couple of years ago. I set the resolution to get in the best shape I've ever been in as an adult, as a grown-up. It's different as you get into your 30s and 40s and 50s. And after a few months, I was frustrated with the progress I was making. I was eating right, cleaned up habits, exercising every day, and I was frustrated. Had a friend recommend Game Day Men's Health, and they're giving you currently the very same deal they give me, which is a very affordable way to get access to some things that can expedite your progress, okay? So for me, testosterone therapy and peptides have been a total game changer. Step number one is you go in and get a free consultation. As a result of them being a client on the show, the consultation is free. Make sure to tell them you heard me talking about it on the radio show. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. It's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule your consultation. They got locations in Lehigh, Pleasant Grove, Cottonwood Heights, and South Ogden. Little bit of blood work, then they go over with you. They sit with you, and then they tell you what they see. Then they make the recommendations based off of what your levels say, okay? So again, testosterone, peptides for me, they got semaglutide, tirzepatide, all the weight loss stuff as well. But here's the kicker. Here's why you got to take advantage of it now. They're giving you 50% off if you tell them you heard me talking about it on the show. 50% off your entire membership for the year, which means 9 months. It's only April. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule that consultation. Tell them you heard me talking about it. Free consultation, 50% off all year with our friends at Game Day Men's Health. We'll catch a break. More coming up next on ESPN 700. Looks like Utah football picked up a nice recruit today. Bishop Kelly 3-star edge rusher Jack Henderson, who's the top-rated player in Idaho for the 2027 class, has committed to Morgan Scalley, Colton Swan, and the University of Utah. Yeah, number one player in Idaho. Just took about a week. Let's see here. He had a lot of offers. Here's what Jack Henderson said about Utah. Quote, I loved visiting with the coaches and just getting a feel for everything they're hoping to continue to do there with the new staff. There's obviously a lot of stability and continuity with Coach Morgan Scalley taking over, and I really believe in their defensive identity. I think it's a perfect fit for me in a football sense, and also just in general, I loved being around the program. So there you go. 2027 edge rusher, best player in Idaho. There you go. So some Utah football recruiting news. As I referenced, the transfer portal is open in the world of college basketball. Let me reiterate, you don't have to choose where you want to go as of now, but you do have to enter the portal in order to transfer. Now, 15-day window after the national championship game, which of course was last night. There's also a window if the coach is fired. I think it's a 30-day window if the coach is fired. Let's get this right. So players can enter and exit the portal during this 15-day window. Again, they do not need to choose their next school or withdraw from the portal during the 15-day period. They just have to be in the portal within the window in order to transfer. Following one head coaching change, it's a 15-day period that opens 5 days after the new coach is hired. And if no new coach is announced within 30 days and the transfer window is already closed, a 15-day window will open on the 31st day for players from that school. Any questions, Porter, or did I unpack that the way it needed to be unpacked?
I think you covered it up until it changes on the next NCAA court ruling or one of the above.
Some players also enter the portal while testing the NBA draft waters. Sidhu Traore has entered the portal from the University of Utah. He joins Terrence Brown and Keanu Dawes. I think TV probably played himself into a nice little contract. We'll see where he ends up going. Good news for Utah State fans. Ben Jacobson on the show announced earlier that Mason Falslev is headed back to Logan, along with Carson Templin. So there you go. Jazz in action tonight. They're taking on New Orleans. The Utah Mammoth. Did you see the Zamboni the Mammoth just released?
The Zamoth.
Is that what they're calling it?
Yeah.
Okay. Looks pretty cool.
It looks great.
Looks like a mammoth. Hence, the name.
A mammoth-themed Zamboni. Of course, the inventor of the Zamboni, a Utah fella.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Are you lying?
I'm pretty sure that's a thing, or at least he spent some time in Utah. That's
a much different thing.
Well, no, lived here. Not
didn't just come out to ski occasionally.
He didn't just drive down I-80 once.
Okay.
That's a real one. Although there are a lot of claims that the state of Utah likes to make because someone's cousin was from here or stuff like that. Like the TV, our guy Philo Farnsworth was very much a pioneer of early television technology. But he didn't invent the thing.
Did you say Philo Farnsworth?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
He's an early TV guy, and Utah likes to give him credit for inventing it entirely when it's not quite.
Was Kentucky Fried Chicken really invented here? The one out on State Street, people say that's the first one.
So it's the first chain. It's the first expansion. It was its own thing. I think it was called Harmon's Cafe.
Okay.
And then when they wanted to expand, it was the first one to become something outside of KFC.
Here's how you know you're in Utah, okay? Had some errands to run this morning, and there's this spot out, I think it's Mill Creek. Was out with our good friends at Wasatch Medical Spa. Shout out to them. Stop by. You head west on, I think that's 33rd, and right next to each other is a Swig soda station and a Java Joe's coffee spot. The Swig Soda Station wait was about 20 cars deep. At about 11:30 today, there were 2 cars in the Java Joe's coffee line.
There you go.
That's how you know you're in Utah.
Frank Zamboni, born in Eureka, Utah.
Okay. Well, shout out Frank. It's actually a big one for the Mammoth tonight. If the season ended today, they would play Edmonton in the playoffs. Edmonton is in town tonight to take on the Utah Mammoth, so we'll see how that goes. I want to let you know that IFA Country Stores has everything you need for your lawn, no matter its size or shape. Their 4+ lawn care program can promote healthy green lawn for you this summer. I need to fix that read. It can promote a healthy green lawn for you this summer. They're the same products used at many local sports fields, golf courses, and city parks. What was that? Oh, never mind. I will admit, first of all, did you watch One Shining Moment last night?
I missed it.
You missed it?
I'm sorry. I'll go watch. I'm sure they put it on the Twitter feed, right?
Probably.
I'll go check it out.
Still get chills every single time. Amazing. Incredible. So good. I will admit, the NCAA tournament is one that when it ends, I should say, I'm tangibly sad.
Yeah.
Watching the game last night, like I said, good, not great game. I thought it was over officiated. It's such a dopamine hit over the course of a few weeks that after it ends, you're like, oh man, forgot how awesome that is.
That's what I was going to say. It's a monthly dopamine hit, yes, but also just you schedule your day around it. You go home, you expect hoops on the TV. You're checking out tip times. You're checking out scores. So yeah, the second that ends, it can be a little bit of, like I was saying, a letdown. But we have postseason basketball on the pro side just around the corner. We've got the Masters, 48 hours away. So we got a little bit to look forward to at least. It's not all lost.
Michigan is your college basketball national champ. Will their football coach be able to do the same thing?
Hey, I'll tell you what. The pressure in Ann Arbor for the football coach and now the pressure in Salt Lake for the football coach in a situation where they were hoping to have some sort of peaceful transition. The pressure's amped up on both of those guys. Yes, because Kyle's in Ann Arbor, but here as well because of how it ended and because Kyle is in Ann Arbor. It's going to be interesting, man. Two really good rosters, and I think Kyle's got a really good football team. But the Big Ten is different. Big Ten's tough. That's where the national championship is likely going to be decided. So we'll see.
Do we ever have peaceful transitions anymore? Is that a thing?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Not entirely.
Okay.
Not entirely.
But eventually you do get there.
I don't know. I don't know if you do.
Well,
there's always some hiccups.
Okay. In the ESPN Way Too Early Top 25 college basketball next year, BYU comes in at 22. Projected starting lineup of Rob Wright III, Bruce Branch III, a lot of thirds, Dawson Baker, Kennard Davis Jr., and they have Kadeem Boop. You can't start that kid if you want to be a top 25 team. Plays hard, guards, cannot dribble, shoot, or pass. No mention of Utah State or Utah. No surprise there. So there you go. College basketball transfer portal is officially open. We'll see if Alex Jensen and his staff can add to this group over the next couple of weeks. Porter, before we say goodnight, Wednesday show. What do we got?
Halfway through the work week, NBA Daily Assist. Our guy Tim McMahon of ESPN talking some hoops with Richard Smitty Smith in studio. The business of college sports with our friend Matt Brown on a Wednesday. And then hoping for some Jazz action as well. We'll go from there.
There you go. Join us for a Wednesday show. We'll get you halfway through your work week. We will get you one day closer to the weekend. We'll say goodnight for this Tuesday edition. Special thank you today to Craig Bolerjack, Ben Jacobson, Scott Spinelli, and Pablo Mastroeni. The Pablo Conversation is my new podcast in conjunction with Sinclair Broadcasting and KUTV. As a result of our partnership, we can play that pod live in this space. That is called Reality Check with Spence Checketts. Please go grab that, subscribe, rate, review. And then for what we do in our space, this podcast is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Check out ESPN700sports.com and download our mobile app. For Porter, I'm Spence saying it. I'd have a great Tuesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Wednesday edition of the program. And as always, you can catch that right here on ESPN 700.